So welcome to 13 Minutes Why Every Man Needs Why. I am honored and privileged to have in the house Rick Recht. Hey brother, how you doing?
Awesome. So happy to be here.
Yeah, man, this is
Always happy to be with you.
this is exciting beyond not for me, but for my wife. And for me too. But I'll explain to our listeners why that is. And first, set the context for the podcast, which is in the name. 13 minutes comes from the statistic, as you know, but so many people don't know that every 13 minutes in America, a man chooses to die by suicide. And I'm on a mission. It's called the 13-minute mission, and that is to push back the clock 1 minute. And that means 2,888 men will choose to live this year if we can do that. And how are we going to do that? As Viktor Frankl taught, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And if you have a why, you have a way. And that's really what this is about. Is I bring on men and sometimes women to the show to talk about their why. And I believe that when people hear Rick Recht's why, and we can dig into what that is, and that's not just one thing, but it's all of the things that it inspires. And that's how we push back the clock, and that's what we're going to do today. So no pressure.
We can do it.
So, man, it's been probably 20 years, I'm thinking, since I've known you, and a totally different context for me, certainly, even for you, kind of. So
Definitely.
where do we start? 20 years ago, where we met, I think, at Shirat Hayam, the synagogue I was a rabbi at.
Yep.
Yeah. Got you in for a gig or something?
Yeah, a couple times. Got to
times.
experience the coolest rabbi in the country, the Zenist rabbi in the country. He had a really cool office.
And the bar
Looks a little bit like this.
It's got this vibe.
Yeah.
So for anybody who doesn't know Rick Recht, he's pretty much world famous. I'm going to see Paul Simon this Friday night.
Yes.
Paul Simon, Rick Recht.
Yes.
Neck and neck. But how would you describe yourself? I call you a Jewish rocker. I don't know. What do you call yourself?
I call myself a Jewish educator.
Oh.
Yeah, and a leadership educator. I feel like music is an extension of that. In the beginning, it was just music, and then it became more important to me to express myself in ways and to have an impact in ways I couldn't do with just my guitar. That I wanted to be a sort of a teacher of teachers and an aggregator of talent. So I look at myself as someone who brings talented people together to make community and to connect with each other.
Like I said, a Jewish rock star.
Yeah. That.
Have you ever thought of yourself as a Jewish rock star? I mean, people kind of put those two things together when they think of you?
Yes. And I've known there's always been a separation in my head, like on a business branding level and a like who I actually am level. And, I grew up like idolizing Elvis Presley and wanting to be a rock star. And when the Jewish thing happened in my late 20s, it was a surprise to me on a lot of levels. And exciting as heck, going around the country and initially with teens and camps and seeing like hundreds, sometimes thousands of teens jumping up and down and sweating and painting their chests and holding posters and all that kind of stuff. So I could acknowledge, yeah, this thing is working and I'm actually a rock star in this place, I have to say in this place, not like walking down the street, which was nice actually to have that separation. So.
Yeah, I'm sure that's probably one of the reasons for your longevity in the profession is because you are able to separate those two things in your head. You've never carried yourself like a rock star. I mean, again, it is the Jewish world, but still, I saw the response to you then. I've watched your journey. I mean, you have influence. Do you walk down the streets of St. Louis and people recognize you? Is that a thing?
Well, in St. Louis, where I'm born and raised, but
not just because
partially because I'm there, and now I'm here in Colorado, which is incredible, and no one knows me here, which is really amazing. Kind of feeling like going to the grocery store and being 1,000% anonymous, and I know you can relate to that as a rabbi. Like what you used to experience, I'm sure was constant, and so I love that separation. I love just putting on my baseball cap and wearing a crappy t-shirt and doing my thing. Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it till you said it, but I think in some ways you're more able to do that. You're just a more humble person than me. And I think that humility goes a long way in kind of keeping that in check. But the other thing is as I think about it, you would go into a community, do your thing, and leave the community.
Yes.
Right. I couldn't do that as a rabbi. I'd go to
Mhm.
the grocery store, the same grocery store, and people stop and say, "Hey, Rabbi, I don't want to bother you, but my aunt just got diagnosed with cancer." I'm
Yeah.
like in the aisle 3 with my
Yeah.
kids screaming.
Totally. Yeah. I was always and am always aware, because I still tour quite a bit, that I have a certain level of guest kind of carte blanche in a community to be me, do my thing, and then to leave. And as a matter of fact, that's why in a lot of cases I'm brought into communities. I'm brought in by rabbis and cantors and educators who are trying to bring in something that they can't personally express in their community, because it might seem like it's a major change or pattern shift that people aren't ready for. But they can bring me in to display something that feels in a certain way and succeeds, so that then they can turn around after I'm gone and say, you know what the Rick Recht guy did? We should try that. What do y'all think? It worked, right? Do you know what I mean? And so it's, I think that's a lot of the reason I'm brought in, is to demonstrate what's possible.
Well, A, and B, you're talented and capable, where, as most rabbis and even cantors can't necessarily pick up the guitar and, get them on their feet dancing. So I think that both of those things can be true.
Totally.
Yeah. We created at Shirat Hayam, the rabbi was a synagogue, at the Ruach rally at the end of the service. And that was kind of a mini rock concert every Saturday at the end of the Sabbath services. And that was a fucking shit disturbing thing that we did at the beginning, right? I mean, we rocked we ruffled a lot of feathers in that process.
Yeah, I bet you did.
So yeah, I get it. I get the challenge that a rabbi is up against to be a disruptor. And most of my colleagues they're not wired that way. Many of them are really lovely souls, caretakers, nurturers, and they didn't sign up to disrupt. But I
also think institutional Jewish life is not set up to be disrupted. It's set up to be more like a battleship that goes in a predictable direction. And that's what they expect naturally they expect of their leaders, is be the captain of the ship and don't move it too fast in any particular direction, because you don't want to rock the boat. And for guys like you and me who want to actually lead, that's difficult. And for me, it was easy because I can walk into a community and lead, and I've created some communities of my own where I've created my own ecosphere that almost you sort of sign on the dotted line in a sense, not really, but when you walk in saying, oh, this is a growing, changing, innovative, different kind of environment where we're going to experiment. But most people don't, particularly rabbis, cantors, and educators, don't walk into institutions where they have that possibility. And even if they do, it concretizes at some point. And it's very difficult to steer the ship or disrupt, as you say,
Totally. I remember Craig Taubman's, what was it, Friday Night
Live, yeah.
I was in,
major disruption.
Yeah,
actually.
I was at the first one in Temple Sinai in Los Angeles, and I was in rabbinical school. And it was disruptive until it wasn't. And then we started doing it years later at my synagogue. And after 3 years, I'm like, I got to change this up. You can't do it. You can't change this. It's always been this way.
Yeah.
Right?
It's funny that you bring that up, because I met Craig when I first started playing Jewish music at a conference, and accidentally end up signing up for some courses that he was teaching, but I didn't know he was teaching them. I just signed up for the name of the course. And so I got to know Craig. This is before I even released my first album. Then I did release an album, and then he called me and asked me to be in his Friday Night Live band. And I got to open for him. I'd play one song. And I did this maybe 6 or 8 times. It wasn't it wasn't even intended to be a long kind of thing. I learned so much from watching him do his thing. We have different kinds of voices, but and different ways of doing things. But he was really amazing at taking a room from A and moving it to Z. No one walked out the same way they walked in. That's a for sure. At a Craig Taubman kind of experience. And that was instructive for me, directive for me in the kind of career I wanted to have. And Friday Night Live actually made it so I could have a career. Because before Friday Night Live, one couldn't in most places, Reform included, but certainly conservative, could not play on Friday nights. And so it made it really difficult if you wanted to be a full-time Jewish music artist, a handful which existed, to even consider that. You couldn't just go out on a Saturday evening and a Sunday. You go out on weekends. And so I really look at Craig as someone who paved that possibility for me just at the right time. I was just beginning, and there it was. All of a sudden, the country lit up, and people were doing it.
I'm thinking this was 1997 that it started, Friday Night Live.
And for me, it was 99, I guess, is like when the movement sort of caught on, and conservative synagogues started saying, well, maybe we should pick up an instrument. I went to the first one, and there was a Chinese dinner served at Temple Sinai. And that was the last time there was a dinner, because they didn't expect it to blow up like it did. It got massive.
It got massive quick.
Yeah.
And we were like, what happened to the dinner? But it really paved the way. And, coming back to this idea, though, I think it's such an important idea. The battleship doesn't turn quickly. We don't want it to turn quickly. But what do you do when the war's changed and, battleships need to move quicker? Because the rabbinical school that I went to is essentially out of business now, right? They're not in demand anymore. The supply demand is no longer, requiring that many rabbis. So we have a problem on our hands. And I think partially it's because this innovation usually only comes from the outside.
Yeah. Well, I think just to get a little more meta on this and more about what you do and how you think about things, I think that battleship is us personally. Actually, it's not just an institutional thing. I think we are battleships in a lot of cases. We get used to doing things. We get used to, and we appreciate and feel comfort in predictable patterns in our lives. But sometimes those predictable patterns aren't established intentionally. They just happen. They happen because of something, how we were socialized by society or our parents. And sometimes these aren't choices that we've actively engaged in our lives. And I think that particularly at the stage of life that you and I are at in our lives, we have this opportunity, if not a mandate in a lot of cases, to sort of, because when we can see there is an end to this, we didn't think that when we were 20. I mean, I thought I might possibly defy and live forever, because I'm that special. But now I know that's not going to happen. And it's definitely caused me to look at my own battleship and go, okay, what things have you been doing because, and why were you doing those things? And what things do you actually want to be doing with your life? And I think that those questions and those choices that I'm making now are also affecting how I approach and understand the institutional Jewish world and the world outside of me.
Such a good insight and pivot too, because when I'm talking about, the Jewish infrastructure, I'm talking about, as you're helping me understand, the way I live life, the way I approach life. I look at Judaism for me as, even though I call myself a spiritual mutt now, it's still the foundation of my worldview and sort of how I navigate. And I think about one of the great contributions of Judaism was that it was a entrepreneurial religion, right? Abraham and Sarah were co-founders. And if you look at, the 10 tests of Abraham, there's a pivoting, there's an iteration. And you look at Jewish history, we're not allowed into medicine, so we create psychiatry. We're not allowed into mainstream law, so we create litigation. And that's fundamental to who we are, but it starts to get calcified in organizational life. You're right.
Yeah. The other thing that we were talking about earlier today is, there's one of the, I think the greatest gifts of Judaism is ritual and patterns that have been established for us, for time immemorial. And, but context is a big part of that. So we can start following that in a rote fashion, just reading words we don't understand, doing things we don't understand or even think about, and we just sort of sleepwalk through experiences. I mean, the analogy between Judaism and patterns and just life and our personal lives, whether we're Jewish or not, is a direct one in a lot of ways. And I think that we can really look at those patterns that we're gifted from the religion that we were born into and go, these are great, I think, and maybe we should think about what they are, because they are great, but they're only great if we create context for them that's meaningful for us personally and communally.
And I think that's where music comes in. I want to jump into that, but even in the Kabbalistic, more traditional settings, it is said that even a mitzvah commandment can become calcified. And the Kabbalists say the definition of idolatry is not bowing down to some statue. It's taking the infinite and making it finite. It's taking the fluid and making it static. And we can do that with a commandment. We can do that with a good deed. We can do that with a relationship, right? And so the work is, how do you keep things animated, fluid, living, evolving? And that's where, I do think, I know that music, at least for me, has really sort of helped me bridge that divide.
Well, how has it helped you bridge that? I'm just curious.
So I don't naturally feel things. I'm an Enneagram 8. I know you don't have a number, but I got a number.
Yeah, no, I got a number.
But my number is how I calcify. It's how I get stuck. It's not who I am.
Yeah.
It's where I go, and I go to do something. So people will say to me all the time, well, what are you feeling? I'm like, I don't know. I need time to slow it down. I'm an action, and I got to get back into my body. I got to get back in my feeling. Well, a hack for me has been music.
Yes.
I play, for me, a lot of kirtan, and boom, I'm in. I've anchored it now. I do plant medicine and kirtan periodically. I don't need the plant medicine. I have the music, and the music brings me into my feeling. I just start crying, and I don't cry readily, and I want to, but music is a hack. It's a shortcut.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's both for me. I feel that as a recipient of music, big time. Music brings me to places that I can't otherwise go to. It's a pathway, and a quick one, like you were sharing. And then as a creator of music, it can take all kinds of forms. Like where I have to bust out of the battleship and turn inwards and ask real questions and see how things evolve. But ultimately for me, the best songwriting is listening, is channeling, is just sitting and letting the messages come from somewhere else and trying to figure out what's being said to me and trying to bring that into a physical state. And that's when it works at its best.
I love that. I love the fact that you're a singer-songwriter too, right? You compose most of your music, not all of your music. I mean, I've heard you do some cover tunes, if you will,
sure.
Friday Night Live.
Yeah.
But I want to get into both the creative process, but also I want to hear some music too. And also, I guess it really is the nature of our conversation today, which is, how do you turn the battleship of your life, right? How do you get off the battleship and maybe get onto a speedboat and go in different directions? And I know you've described your music as sort of taking that evolution, and you're in a different pivot. You're in a different place. I'd love to hear more about the journey of Rick Recht through his music.
Sure. I mean, I think the music for me is a reflection of what's actually happening in my life, not the other way. It's not like I just pump out music. There's something that, it starts with what's going on in my life. And I think there's been a few milestones in my life that I can look back and go, like, that radically affected me. Like in my early 20s, my mom died, and my girlfriend, who I'd been going out with for 6 years, and we just had a deep and beautiful relationship, broke up with me for good reason. And I didn't realize that at the time, but it leveled me more than my mom dying, actually. And it was so instrumental in helping me to ask questions that I wouldn't have otherwise asked. I mean, I would have been a rotten husband. I was just sleepwalking in a lot of ways, and that was a wake-up call, and nothing less than that would have brought me to my elements, in a sense. Like, I can't get out of bed, need to start writing, kind of thing, to figure my way out of this and rediscover who I am. That was a big deal for me. Meeting my wife, Elisa, who's been my love and partner for well, married for 26 years, but a couple of years before that, of course. And then turning 50-ish, something around there. It wasn't a number I was focusing in on, but some things happened at that time in my life that gave me a certain level of presence to look around and say, what am I doing? Like, what is all this for, and how do I want to conduct the last stage of my life? And I'm in that right now. I'm in that process, and I hope to be in that process actively for the rest of my life. And musically, the meeting Elisa actually also accompanied my going into and playing Jewish music. So it actually ushered in my career too. And so I found my voice in Jewish music. Up until then, I was playing music that always seemed to sound like someone else. And then when I started playing Jewish music, I almost suddenly and accidentally sounded like me. And it doesn't matter what I play now, or even if I'm playing someone else's song, I still sound like me. Like anyone would know what I sound like now. I know what I sound like. And then when I was 50, I started writing music for myself in a way that I hadn't really since I was a child, probably. I started writing just very personal music that I didn't think I would even ever record. And as a matter of fact, I said, you're not going to record this, because I wanted to write it for me and not be thinking about what anyone would think. I wanted to sort of disengage my ego from the process and say, you can sit in the back seat for a little bit. We can drive together, but I'm going to take the wheel for a little bit and do my thing. Yeah.
Viktor Frankl. Can you name his books?
No.
Can you name one of them? Man's Search for Meaning? Right?
That one.
Nobody else can.
Yeah.
And then 39 books.
Yeah. And there was one other book that I read, but no, I haven't read the other 37.
But it's interesting because he wrote 39 books. Yeah. All 38 of them were written with his name on that. And he originally created Man's Search for Meaning anonymously.
Yep.
And that's the one that went viral, if you will. Mm-hmm. And that only the last minute, the publisher made him put his name on it because people weren't going to take it as legitimate. But you're describing a very similar thing, right? It's like, that was the book that touched so many, and not that your other music didn't touch people, but I can feel in this new iteration of you, right? A Rick Recht that I didn't know 20 years ago. You didn't know him. Right?
No, I definitely didn't know him.
But I can feel
I didn't know him until really recently. It's funny when I look back at, I don't know how you feel about this, but I remember when I was like 51 or something like that, and I would look back at my 49-year-old self, and I'm like, that's an entirely different person. Like, it almost seems, when we think back on our 20s, that's like a different lifetime ago. It could be a different person entirely, and I can barely even remember some of that stuff. I almost feel the same way about my 49-year-old self too. There's something so drastically changed, in between the 40s and the 50s. You hear about this kind of thing, but I didn't know it actually would happen. I thought maybe I'd defy that too.
Well, you still have all your hair, so not everything has changed for But I think it's an important point because we live in a culture that only would perceive that as a negative, right? That, we're on the decline kind of a thing, physically, whatever. And I see it the exact opposite.
Me too. Yeah.
I feel like I'm moving into authentic power, purpose, right? Passion in a way that I just didn't know prior to this phase.
I couldn't agree more. And, just my mentors through books and through music and through friendship have all evolved and changed pretty dramatically over the last few years. And I've changed, through my active work on me, and just being present and grateful in different ways than I was before, when I was in my just rocket ship drive, go, fear-driven kind of stage that went on for a couple decades, which I think is pretty common in our society, and yet And a lot of that, I'm glad that I did, and I'm really glad to be done with that.
To give it some language, Carl Jung calls it the morning of life and the afternoon of life.
Yeah.
And what he says in a very famous passage is, what worked in the morning will fail you in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
It works in the morning. You're in the morning, and it's hard to describe, but when you're shifting into the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I feel like that's what we're talking about, is that shift into the afternoon, different ways of being. Because what he says ultimately is, if you try to live in the afternoon like the morning, you struggle, you suffer. But if you have new ways to move through the world in the afternoon, new rules, new identity, it can be beautiful. And that's what I'm hearing.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like, those of us, this is just a different way of saying what you just said, which is that don't recognize that we're in a new stage and try to hang on to that stage 2 of our lives. I've always felt that it's almost like 1 to 25-ish, 25 to 50-ish, and then 50 moving up. It's sort of like those 3 stages in life. And if you try to hang on to stage 2, you're, one, not going to succeed. You can't. And 2, you're not going to experience the elevation and the success and the power of stage 3, which is pretty incredible. I mean, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, as your toe and your back and all these different things in your finger start to hurt, and mine do. But at the same time, my head is in such a good place, and that's a gift.
My next book, which I'm already kind of starting, which is a bad idea before I promote this one, but it's based on the game of chess. And do you play chess at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there's a principle, I know I shared this with you on but in chess, that if, the king is moving, the game, you're losing. The game is being lost, because the king needs to stand still. And that just means in your values, in your identity, knowing who you are. And that's, to me, what we're talking about, is the shift into becoming a king, right? At the center of my kingdom. So by the way, my queen has the most power. She can move freely because she knows, her partner is grounded and solid and no longer sort of flailing and struggling and proving and doing. And so a lot of men that I work with, and probably watching this, they're trying to move into that next phase of becoming a king. Would love to, hear both your take on it, and also kind of how you have expressed that shift into this next phase in music.
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because in a pretty literal way, I feel that, my wife Elisa and I've always worked together throughout my career, which is the entire time we've known each other. And she has so many creative gifts. She's an extraordinary educator and creator of all things, particularly creation that is in a Jewish lens and really finds the deepest meaning in Judaism. And I feel her now at this stage exploring and creating at an incredible pace. And I think a lot of that has to do with the presence that I'm experiencing in my life now, which is a partnership. I don't do anything by myself, and I associate her with sort of a good 90% of, when I say not by myself, I mean her. 10% other people, maybe, but 90% her. And we do everything together, literally and figuratively. And I think by me being planted now in my own, energetically planted, it's allowed her to explore different aspects of herself. And I'm also having the presence to support her now in what she's doing, versus her supporting me / supporting us for so many years. And that feels really good.
It's amazing. Ariel and I, we've been married about the same time as you and Elisa. And we do these journeys now. We take people on these journeys. And originally we were co-leading. And I finally said to her, I'm ready to be the Rebbitzin, the supporter of the rabbi. You get to be the rabbi of sorts. And so I watch her lead now, and I'm in sort of the supporting role. And I couldn't have done this 20 years ago.
Did you feel like because I've felt along the way, I've always been aware of Elisa's gifts, and she's expressed them in the work that we do together. But I've always felt like the work that we're in together was limiting her ability to truly reach her potential. Did you ever feel that kind? I mean, I felt bad about it. I was like, I want to get to a place where I can take my foot off the accelerator a little bit so that she can drive too, you know?
Yeah, I had to leave the rabbit not for that reason, but that was a serious reason, because no matter how hard I talked in the plural we,
yeah, it wasn't really we.
No matter what I did, it was to her. And then what do you think, Rabbi?
Yep.
You know, give me your attention, Rabbi. And she always became a second-class citizen in an equal partnership.
Yeah.
And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't fend that off. And I started to absorb that over time. And she felt that over time. And that was really creating a disparity in our relationship. So very hard thing to do in certain professions. I imagine being a Jewish educator, rock stars, in that vein.
Yeah. Well, in many ways, I always felt like a bit of the quarterback with the earpiece, and Elisa was speaking through that earpiece, because she was always educating me and coaching and standing, working with me, producing whatever we were doing together, whether it was me out front or not. But seeing her creativity express at such a incredible level right now is it's evident of where we're at. Like I don't have to wonder; it's a measurable difference, and I'm really loving that symbiosis finally. Instead of saying it, actually experiencing it, and I think that's a big change in my life now, that I can look at almost analytically and say that my priorities, the priorities that I've always talked about, are actually happening now. There were years, and I'm sure you experienced this, where you stand up on a bima, on Shabbat and talk to everyone about family and relaxing. And like, I wasn't home for a Shabbat for like 2 decades. Elisa was sweet enough to make Shabbat on Thursday nights so that we could experience that as a family. But I did feel like a bit of a fraud, like talking about a lot of the things I talked about, and especially being like literally absent at those moments from my own family life. And now I feel like finally those things are actually in sync.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have this book called The Guy in the Glass. Have you heard about it?
I've heard about it. I've read it. It's great.
That was me fishing for compliments. But that's the whole thesis of the book, which is when you go to the mirror at the end of the day, right? Are you living in alignment?
Yeah. What
you say and what you do and what you believe, if they're not in alignment, you start to pay a price over time. And that's what I've heard you kind of describing, at least that's how I've heard it, is you get to this point, that 50 mark, where it's like, what the fuck am I doing? Yeah. It's time for alignment. And I see a man and listening to a man who's making that shift.
Yeah. I feel good about The Guy in the Mirror. And I really, when I read your book, when we've hung out together, and talked about this, that question is there the whole time. Not when we're hiking, but like in your book. And I'm happy to say that I actually feel really good about the guy that I'm waking up to. I feel like I'm doing the work, and always will do the work. There's going to be ups and downs. I finally realized at this stage of life that, oh yeah, there's not a peak that you reach. This is a mountain chain, and this is all part of it. But I can say I love myself now. Do you know what I mean? And I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I feel good about that.
Did you say now? Are we talking like post 40s, or you felt that for a long time?
No, I felt that for a short time. I felt that for just the last, I don't know, few years, something like that. But before that, I felt very out of sync with myself. I was happy with what I was doing. Actually, I mean, I'm lucky that I do work that is very meaningful to me and to others. And so that's great. And yet the proportion was so radically off. It was just, everything was just out of whack on a lot of levels. And the reasons why I was out of whack were out of whack, meaning like doing things because I was just scared. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Now that cortisol, that fear is not, it's backed from 100% reason to maybe 10%, which is healthy, to have I do think that having self-protection and concern rather than worry, but having concern is healthy if it's in a proportional place that makes sense.
Sure.
But I'm feeling good about where things are at. And before, it was not healthy. It was working 3 full-time jobs, like a good 120-hour a week kind of weeks, at doing things that are good, but that's way too much. And it was robbing my presence dramatically,
Right.
with everyone, with my wife, my children, and friends, family, and anyone. I was always in a little bit of a different place.
And that's the suffering or the rub, because, I said, my top priorities would be a husband and a father and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And my energies are not matching up with those stated values.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the shift that you're describing, that I've gone through, that so many men are going through in this 40-50 range. And that, the Buddhists call it the bardo, the sort of the liminal space.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like one day and then the next day. There's a process. So I'd love to hear more about your process, because I also sense that that's reflected in your music.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd love to hear maybe some of that, and also literally hear some of that reflected in the journey of Rick Recht from what we would call Prince to King.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can share a song, but I think, well, here, I will share a song, but I'll tell you why I wrote it, and this will answer your question, which
Mm-hmm.
is that I was talking with a really good friend of mine, and we were on the phone, and he was asking me about my morning rituals. Like, do I have morning rituals? And I said, yeah, actually I have for years. In the morning, I get up and I usually have a really big glass of water, like a green drink, hydrate myself, and then I journal and I meditate, and then I'm actually ready to start my day. That actually takes a while, by the way. It could take a little bit of time, but I make time for that now. I get up early and I just do my thing, which is great. My body cooperates. My body gets me up early. And he said, well, tell me about journaling, because I'm interested in journaling. And I said, well, I don't have any rules for journaling. I just sit down and write. I write about anything that's on my mind. I often talk about the previous day and talk about how I want this day to be. And I talk about wins. I like to sort of say, like, what are a few wins from yesterday? It's just sort of my cute way of patting myself on the shoulder and acknowledging like what happened and keeping track of time. So it's not just a big blur. And processing where I want to process. There's no length. There's no amount of time. No rules. I said, but the one thing that is sort of a rule for myself came from a repeated experience with Elisa, with my wife, which is that for years, when I would make mistakes, I would accost myself out loud. I'd make a mistake and go, idiot, or fucking idiot, that kind of stuff, like real deep cut kind of thing. You would never talk to a friend or family member like this. I mean, if you wanted to see them again, okay? But I was pretty comfortable talking to myself that way. And Elisa would shake her finger at me and she would say, don't talk to my boyfriend that way. And it sounds sort of humorous, but it wasn't humorous. She was actually being dead serious with me, and she meant it, and she would hold it, like hold the gaze, like, no, I'm being serious. And finally I put that into practice. And as I would journal, and as I do journal, I would only be kind to myself. And one of the ways I would do that is that I have a belief that I am surrounded by angels, by ancestors who are guiding me and supporting me and helping me make decisions in certain ways and leading me down all kinds of paths that are part of the design of my life and of the education I'm supposed to have in this lifetime. Whether it's difficult or easy, whatever it is, but they do keep me safe along the way. I'm aware of that. And so there's a part in my journaling where I talk to myself in loving language. I call myself like kiddo, or, baby, or, like my dad used to call me, hey, baby, that kind of thing. And I'm loving to myself. And I even say, I'll do it in third person sometimes because it feels actually more authentic. I'll say, we love you. We're proud of you. We believe in you. Get out there and have an awesome day. You've got this kind of thing. It's all coming from my head. So,
What do you think?
Well, no, but my point is I'm taking responsibility for being a good person to myself in the way that I would hope that I would be to others. And it's made a big difference for me. And so I told my friend about this and being kind to himself, and he groaned at the other end of the phone. And it was heartbreaking. It made me
groaned in what way?
Well, he said, I don't know if I can do that. And I was like, what? So painful hearing.
Be nice to my boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wrote this song, and it also actually includes a line from the TV show Friday Night Lights. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Loved it.
And it was sort of part of our
full eyes, clear
eyes, full hearts can't lose. And we developed this, and when I say we, I mean Elisa, developed this mantra, because we watched this as a family, and we developed this mantra for our children that we would say, like, when they would go to school in the morning. And it was great, like, through their when they're little kids, when they're teenagers and half asleep over their cereal, and we would do this, and it's a call and response kind of thing. And when they were driving their cars, we would literally physically run behind them, yelling to them the call and response as they're getting in their car and starting the engine. And to this day, we actually have a WhatsApp group, with the family. We send them the mantra. They included this when they wrote their bar mitzvah speeches. They sort of drilled mom and dad on this, which was fun and cute. And we didn't know it was coming, but it was great. I'll share it with you. I always like to look down at it because Elisa usually leads it, and I can do it, but I don't want to miss anything. You could see if you can fill in the blanks. Okay, you ready? Make awesome choices. Offer your best effort. Have a positive, you got this one, attitude. Be kind. I like this one a lot. Be kind or be quiet. Make mistakes and fail forward. Be loving towards yourself and towards others. Be generous with your compliments. I learned a lot of that from Elisa. Believe. Clear eyes, full hearts. Can't lose. And always remember, we love you, we're proud of you, and most importantly, we believe in you. And in many ways, that's not just like a cutesy mantra. That is something that I think it's a philosophy in our home.
It's a why.
It's a big why. Yeah.
Most people, when I ask them what's your why, they kind of hem and haw and stumble, and you've articulated at least part of your and also it's a family why.
Yeah.
Right.
So here I'll play you this song. It's called Clear Eyes, which also happens to be the name of the album that it's on. It tears me up the way you talk to you, breaks my heart. You can give yourself some grace. It doesn't have to be so hard. You never put a stranger through what you do to you. Well, you're perfect and right on time, not a second too late to live your life. Everything's all right, and you're right on time. Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose, we say. If you only realize who's walking next to you every day. And I believe in you, wish you would too. And I believe in you, and you can too. You don't have to second guess every step. You can choose to choose. Come on and count your wins. Catch yourself doing everything you've wanted to. Why don't you stop, breathe it in, the rainbow of blessings you're living in. Well, it's morning, the sun's rising, your heart's beating, and love's here reminding you to believe in you. Well, I believe in you. I believe in you. Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose, we say. If you only realize who's walking next to you every day. And I believe in you, I wish you would too. And I believe in you, and you can too. Breathe it in, clear eyes, breathe it out, full hearts. I believe, can't lose, this is only your start. Believe it in, clear eyes, believe it out, full hearts. I believe, can't lose, this is only your start. And I believe in you, and you can too. Clear eyes, full hearts can't lose, we say. If you only realize who's walking next to you every day. And I believe in you, wish you would too. And I believe in you, and you will too.
Wow. So, one of the hallmarks of the king is to be the ability or the willingness or the readiness to bestow blessing, right? To bestow blessing at the deepest level, not the rote ritual, but I could feel what a blessing that would be to receive that as a child, right? And I could feel the power of that.
Oh, the mantra?
Just the way, what you composed and how you just delivered it is the definition of bracha. It's the definition of blessing. The word blessing comes from the word Baruch, which is power. It's actually power, and it's bestowing power. Empowering is the word we would use. I don't know. That's just what I felt.
I think at this stage in our lives, just speaking for myself, but also things I've read, is that gratitude for blessings that we're surrounded by becomes the foundation that we stand on in the context that we can place ourselves in. And for me, as I mentioned to you recently, that's become some of my why relatively recently, which is to observe this commandment, mitzvah gdolah, of like really observing how important it is to recognize these blessings, and that those blessings give context to everything. When I feel this kind of gratitude and feel surrounded by blessings, I actually know my place and I become present in it. And so I feel our boys who are 21 and 24 feel that. I think they're way more aware of it than I was at that age. But a lot of it is because of the relationship that we have with each other that has helped them develop a whole orientation in this world that is contextualized by blessings. And at this stage in my life, it's become my guide to orient myself towards joy and gratitude versus towards work. The work is still happening, all kinds of work, external and internal work, but the joy is a very, very high priority now.
Yes, and the joy and the gratitude to me are the portals to open up and receive blessing, because you can't receive blessing if you don't appreciate it, right? Have that. And to me, joy is also, it's like beyond survival, right? It's hard to feel joy if you're in survival mode. And that's really the morning of life kind of motif.
Yes.
Survive. And then you start to get to the afternoon, which is, can I open myself up and receive it? Because you can't give what you don't have. And that's the shift into the king is, yes, Rick Recht has opened himself and experienced joy and living with gratitude. That's clear. Now, the next iteration is, can I start bestowing that? And that's what I heard also is the shift in this song. And the song is obviously emblematic of how you're living your life, bestowing blessing. To me, that's the next step.
I also think forgiveness is a big thing, forgiving others and forgiving ourselves. And that was there was also someone else I wrote this song for, which is, without getting into the long story of it, was a woman who was someone I knew in high school. I heard a podcast about her with her. And the podcast really talks about how she was secretly pregnant in high school, like while I was in high school with her, but no one knew. Period. Like she literally had the baby, gave the baby up for adoption in high school, and no one knew. Not even her own family that she was living with knew for quite a while. And in retelling this story as an adult, and I won't share the details because there's a very interesting and happy ending. But in telling this story on the podcast, she was still unforgiving of this 16, 15-year-old kid. And it brought me to tears. I remember I was actually out to dinner with my wife. I literally started crying, thinking about this grown woman our age, who still was having a hard time letting go of mistakes she made when she was a child. And I think that that's also part of how we have the opportunity to center ourselves now. It's a choice that we can make, which is to say, okay, it's okay. It's okay. The mistakes we've made, the mistakes we're currently making, the mistakes that we will make are, as my wife says, they're miracles. They're ways that we discover ourselves, and they're part of our journey. And that's great. It's not just okay.
What am I doing with you on the show? I want your wife here.
Oh, trust me, brother, you definitely have the wrong person at this microphone.
I have a feeling both of our wives could have a great podcast.
Married sharply up.
And it's a very powerful piece of being a king. It's having a kingdom and practicing compassion, right? To sort of just free people from those burdens, even if you're right, at least I'm working on, and it's not easy for me to get to this place where, Wayne Dyer always said, do you want to be right or do you want to be in love?
Yeah.
Right. And of course there is a time to be right, but more often than not, it's time to be in love, and it's with the people around me.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, it's also with myself.
And can you acknowledge that you and others are all on a journey, and can you find compassion to realize they're going to make mistakes and they're just as lost and searching and exploring as you are. And that, and they might even be, and this is one of I find a lot of utility in this kind of perspective, is that all these different characters around us who are doing great things and terrible things and all that kind of stuff, all might be reflections of us. That if we look at them and say, that person making that mistake, if we're true to ourselves, we can admit in a lot of cases, I've made that mistake, or I carry a little bit of that in me too. And, so we can see all of that. And if we can have the presence to see that, this actually came from Wayne Dyer too, by the way, then, as well as other great thinkers, not me, that we can find some understanding in other people and some compassion for what they're experiencing in their lives.
When you said that with Wayne Dyer, I just listened to a podcast of his, and he was talking about the soul contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then we sign up, he signed up to teach people how to live autonomous lives. Therefore, God said, get your ass into an orphanage.
Yeah.
And he spent his first 10 years in an orphanage.
Yeah.
And that's for him to decide. I would never tell somebody that's, God put you in an orphanage so you could teach. But clearly you are fulfilling a soul contract in this work that you're doing, in this way that you're living. Does that speak to you?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I feel I often think of the movie Truman Story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that, but
of course.
I feel like so much so, I feel like or maybe in collaboration, but somehow came up with this full design for my life, like a curriculum. And I'm experiencing the design now, and all these people around me, these people are close in or sort of tighter team. And then there's some peripheral people that I might meet or smile at on the street or in a checkout line or something like that. But it's all part of this extravagant, complex picture to support my curriculum. It's a very selfish view, but in all seriousness, I really do feel that we might all have this, a curriculum that ties us together in a very complex way that our little human brains can't actually fully understand. But I feel very, very strongly that in my life, things go in such a consistent kind of direction where I'm almost pulled from place to place. A lot of times the universe speaks in very non-subtle kind of ways. It's like, listen, this is obvious. We're going to make this sledgehammer obvious for you, kiddo.
So in that movie, the one with Jim Carrey, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's the world's also conspiring to keep him in the container. Yeah. And you've obviously really challenged some of your container in this post 50 afternoon king phase of your life. Are there people or things trying to conspire to keep Rick Recht as the previous version?
Nah. I mean, if anyone was conspiring, it was me. Okay. I'm not going to put that on anyone else for sure. No one cares about anyone else.
I don't mean conspiring as we have it in for Rick Recht, but you were building something very distinct.
Yes. I mean, there's definitely obstacles along the way, but those obstacles were the greatest gifts of my life. In some cases, there were things that I wanted to participate in, for instance, on a career level, that I just could see that I was not going to be allowed to participate in. Not because anyone was mean or anything like that, but people were, doing their own thing and, looking out for themselves, not in mean ways, but basically the way humans do. Mm-hmm. But bottom line is I was not going to be picked for the team kind of thing. And it forced me to create my own ecosphere, which is far greater than any team I could have joined. I got to create the team that was my dream team. Okay. Like literally my dream team I'm surrounded by now. So I look at these barriers that did exist around me at different points and around everyone as arrows and as freedom in a lot of ways. It's ramps, giving me ushering me into the direction I was supposed to go. I almost picture my angel team, running ahead of, on the path and putting a big red flag saying, not here, not here. Go back to your purpose. Go back to your purpose. Go back inside, ask yourself some questions and figure this out, because it's not going to be the path that you thought that you were going to be taking, but it is part of your journey.
Such a powerful way to look at life and live life, especially when you get to the second half of life, right? Man plans, God laughs kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so and this is by the way, this is my life's work to live what you're talking about, is can I just let go? Or another Wayne Dyer teaching, since we're on a
big
one. Row your boat gently down the stream, not up the stream. Row your boat, right? Not up the stream. Just down the stream. And that's what you're describing.
And the concept of letting go, such a big one for me. In some of the deepest moments of my life, that's the message that's come through to me, which is let go. Let other people go and do what they're doing, Ricker. You don't have to be involved. You don't have to control. You don't have to do anything like that. And also let yourself go. Just let it go. It doesn't mean throw it all away, throw the reins in a trash can, but it means just loosen the reins. Let the horse move in the direction it wants to move. It's okay. It's bringing you in the right direction. Trust that. Just trust yourself. Trust the universe. Most of all, trust the universe. The universe has never let me down. Not once. It's always, you say the universe has your back. I mean, the universe is like a chariot for me. Okay. It's more than just like my back. Like the universe doesn't meet me halfway. It meets me like 90% of the way. I just got to be engaged, but then let the universe do the talking. So
beautiful.
Want to hear another song? Because I'm feeling like, I don't usually say this, but I'm feeling the lyrics of a song that I wrote specifically on this. So
take it
and
away,
it's a
Rick
song
Recht.
that I was mentioning to you before this that I don't I rarely play, so I'm sort of excited to refresh on it while I'm singing it.
I love it. Now this is going viral too.
Yeah. So this song is called Your Sign, and I'm a big believer in signs. I believe the universe speaks to us, speaks to me, certainly speaks to Elisa in signs, and that if we're aware, they're everywhere. And if we're willing to let go of making sense of everything, we can just sort of feel the signs, and they're very powerful. It's a very, very powerful language. So that's what this song is about. It's also about having an open heart. Squeezing in here. Open my heart, open my eyes, so I can feel the freedom inside me. To open my heart, to open my eyes, to live in this light, to learn how to love me. And I will turn down the sound, turn down the darkness that turns me from my true purpose, and I will turn up my truth, turn up my true intention to be all that I'm meant to be. All this I know is meant to be. You tell me that I'm your witness and I'm your truth, and I am the words that were written so long before you were you. I am the endless and the absence. I am this moment in time, this gift that will always guide you. I am your sign. I am your sign. I am your sign. I'm by your side. I am yours. Open my heart, open my eyes, so I can understand these lessons that test me over and over. To open my heart, open my eyes, so I will find inside to see what my soul is searching for. And I will turn down the sound, turn down the distractions, the noise and dissatisfaction, and I will turn up my hope, turn up my openness to all that's exactly meant to be. All this I know is meant to be. You tell me that I'm your witness and I'm your truth, I am the words that were written so long before you were you. I am the infinite. I am this fragment divine, this gift that will always guide you. I am your sign. I am your sign. I am your sign. I am inside. I am your sign. I am your sign. I'm by your side. I am inside. I am yours. Open my heart. Open my eyes. Of this I'm sure, that you're by my side.
That was amazing. Wow.
Thanks.
So you know what the number one reason for suicide is? The common denominator that runs through all of them is loneliness. And when I listen to that song, when I feel it, I just don't feel lonely, right? It's impossible to be lonely if you embody what you just shared.
I think this, like one of the sort of the guides, I guess, just guides in my life, not a principle, but is this idea that each of us has a godly spark, this B'Tselem Elohim in us. This always made sense to me. I was raised in a conservadox shul with a sweet Hamishi rabbi with a long white beard, and I thought that is definitely what God is and looks like. But I just learned about stories from thousands of years ago, and it really just ultimately, past bar mitzvah age wasn't relevant. To me, it didn't make sense, and nor did God, or the concept of God. But as a young adult, when I learned about this concept of B'Tselem Elohim, that each of us and in all things carries a spark of the divine, that made sense to me. And it makes more, because there's like a body to it. There's a life and energy to it. So when I'm with you, when I'm walking in nature, I feel that godliness, and that becomes operational for me in how I think about my connection and relationship with everything that's on the outside, but particularly on the inside. I feel thus a responsibility, like we were talking about in terms of loneliness, in terms of suicide, is that when we associate this idea of the divine and a holiness in ourselves, then it creates a sense of being accompanied, and also a sense of importance. Like, you can't injure this thing, not just by suicide, but even by hurtful words, that kind of thing. Like, would you talk to God that way? Would you talk to, and actually that statement is hard for me to even like completely, but would I talk to you that way, and the godliness in you? Absolutely not.
Don't talk to my boyfriend that way.
Yeah. It's a good t-shirt.
My other book up there, Spark Seekers, is based on that idea. And I wrote it going through grief of my father. This was 20 years ago. And that the principle that you're describing is, in the darkness, there's always sparks, the nitzuts. And our mission as human beings is to go into the darkness and to discover those sparks. Right. And again, so much of your music is, to me, having listened to much of it over the years, is to go into the darkness to find those sparks. I just want to thank you for that contribution to my life personally, my family's life. I can't speak on behalf of the world, but I can speak on behalf of a lot of Jews. And, as we wrap up here, just a little anecdote. My wife would kick my ass if I didn't share it. So we were in Des Moines, Iowa, my first gig out of rabbinical school. Totally like, galut, the diaspora, like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And we had just come off of being very religious in a LA community, Sinai, all these Temple Sinai, all these amazing things. And now we're on our own, and we're trying to be observant And the life of a conservative rabbi is very lonely by definition because we're the only ones. And so one of the things, my wife was postpartum with our second child, Maya, and our oldest, Yehuda, who's right over there, was a couple of years old at that point. And she was losing her connection, her identity, her Jewishness. There was a couple things, rituals that she had, and one of them was to play Rick Recht, and particularly, not exclusively, Kiva Moed.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that just became her symbol more than mine, but still mine too. And then I brought that into the synagogue world. And so for her personally and for me professionally, it really was a sustaining light in some of our darkness.
Wow.
And the images that we have is her playing this in a house on Hardwood Drive in Des Moines, Iowa, with our toddler Yehuda at the time, riding around on a tricycle in the family room. You know, there's nowhere to go, nothing to do, but playing this song. And it would be Kiva Moed, and he would just be yelling on his little tricycle, drive, drive, drive. And he would drive around.
I hope you remember all this.
And he would drive around.
Yeah.
And so would you just take us through a couple lines of it? You don't have to play the whole thing. And then Yehuda, would you get your tricycle and come over here?
Yeah.
By the way, if you can't see Yehuda, he's like some big starker now, like muscle bound beard.
Yeah.
So he's far from riding a tricycle. But Ariella, this one's for you.
So, and I'll just share that, you know, that for a long time, this was in a sense just a song that people could participate in, and it's as a nigun, like a wordless melody, and that was great, and still is great. But the idea of the time has come, kivamo, let's do this kind of thing, has become more instructive for me. When I play this nowadays, I think about that, and in the context of our conversation today, I think, you know, it's a hineni, like I'm here, you know, it's my responsibility. Step up. The time has come. Let's do this kind of thing. It's a real active kind of message that falls behind this now, not just singing. So
let's do this.
Let's do it, baby. Yalla, 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 yalla. Yalla, 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 Kiva Moen, Kiva Moen, Kiva Moen, Kiva Moen. Yalla yana, yalla yalla yalla, yalla yalla yalla, yalla yalla yalla, yalla 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 yalla, ya 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 yalla yalla ya ya. The time has come. The time has come. Kiva Moen. Kiva Moen. Rock and roll, brother.
Oh man, that hit hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for being a Jewish educator and educating me and so many others.
Likewise.
Thank you for bringing God's Spirit into this world, into my family's life. It's an honor and privilege to know you, to have you here in Colorado, and to call you my brother. I love you, Rick.
I'm in. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.